Hello all and welcome in here to Belgium. We're here with GRL and we're here doing a social race in our pre-season before we start racing here in GRL. Season about to start soon, but we've got a lot of fast drivers here in this pre-season race in Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. And this will definitely be ones to watch for GRL, who we always race on Mondays at 8 PM UK time. But we have many a tier. I believe it's 5 or 6 tiers in GRL. Not entirely sure. We'll see after sign-ups what there will be. But welcome all in. We'll see who's going to be first on a lap here, if we can join them on a lap of the Spa circuit. Let's see, I'm trying to find this one car, here we are, of Mulder's, so we'll have a look at his onboard to see how he can do this run. And Mulder will be the first driver here to start their lap in this GRL social race, down to second for turn 1 as he heads up the infamous hill of Rouge and Radillon with that stand on the outside as Mulder gets a lovely run up the hill and the very long Camel Straight, one of the longest straights on the calendar here in F1. And down into this tricky right, left, and then a right again before we head down the hill. And mostly down the hill circuit from here on out. And Mulder keeping it pretty clean on this run around so far. Thank you, Stenner, for welcome all of yours in as Mulder around here out of I'm trying to remember the corner names. I must get up the corner names just so I remember. But he'll be the first driver to put a lap time on the board as he heads out a bus stop in the charge to the line. And it is a 42.8. Don't actually know if that's a good time or not in this game because I've not touched Spa yet myself. Epic with a 42.0. We've Crossfire Strikes, one of the quickest drivers for AMS last season. We'll stay on board with him to see where Crossfire Strikes can go currently in the V-Carb as he bounces through the hill of Pouon. Very fast left-hander. But where can Crossfire Strikes go as he is now on a charge down to bus stop, one of the longest, actually probably longer than the Camel Straight, but winding the cars and really not going at full pace. Loses some speed through the left-hander as we go down all the way down to second through bus stop. And where can Crossfire Strikes go as he's losing the rear, trying to get the traction into the final corner? Crossfire Strikes up to P3 with a 42.1. And next Blade starting a lap is Bran up to P4, just a tenth shy of Crossfire Strikes. Who else do we have out there? FG James looks like he's got some tire on the grass there. Maybe a mistake from FG James, as we have FG Stenner in the chat. We also have EVR Daniel around the final corner. Where can the EVR driver go, as it's P9, not the best of laps for Daniel. As we've got Rosie. And interesting to see what gear the drivers take corner. Rosie's gone for third through bus stop and up to P5. Meanwhile, we do have Raza and Paulos. Raza goes up to P8 and Paulos yet to set a lap time here on the board. But we'll stay with Paulos on this lap, although I think he is on an in lap, so maybe made a mistake on his lap attempt. We have Blade here, who's definitely improving. In the Ferrari. Went for an extra out lap before he did his actual push lap, and we'll see where the Ferrari can go as he heads into bus stop as well. Another one of the drivers choosing third, but I think he realised he was not improving by enough to make use of that lap time. But let me add this, if it'll let me. Anywho. Next we have Ben Ford in the Aston on a lap now. As he touches the gravel, heading down the hill himself. And we currently only have 4 drivers who are yet to set a lap time on the board yet. But I'm sure in no time they will have a lap time on the board. But as Ben Ford comes in to bus stop, where can he put this Aston? On his first lap attempt, he has all of his deployment used, and into P12 he goes, as we have Dylan Baxter on a lap, but Snowy next around in the Alpine. And where can Snowy go? As we still have 8 minutes left of the session, so a lot of drivers still have a decent amount of time to improve, but in Belgium, this is one of the tracks where, as Snowy does go P4, one of the tracks where you don't get many runs. You've really only got about 2 or 3 attempts because it's such a long track. It's more difficult to get the lap times on the board that you would ideally want. But we'll follow Dylan Baxter next, who is on a flyer. And where can... Oh, Dylan's invalid, so it'll be Sausage Joe, who's just started a lap. We've also Mulder out there, I believe, but I think it is Sausage Joe who's ahead. And Sausage Joe, who I do believe was representing AMS as well last game. And it is great to see the spectator... the spectator view on this game is vastly improved. It is looks a lot more sweet. As you've really seen the quality. As Sausage Joe was chucking it up a rouge there. But in the Williams, can he get anywhere near one of his AMS teammates from last season of Crossfire Strikes? Although, I believe, to my knowledge, the only real 3 drivers I would have commentated in the past are Sausage Joe, Crossfire Strikes, and Daniel. So, Epic OJ and Reese, Snowy and Bran, a couple of quick drivers that I am yet to commentate. I've definitely commentated over Paulos as well. But as Sausage Joe now into the final chicane. Difficult traction zone out of the final corner, but Sausage Joe does get a decent improvement, and up to P5 he goes. Meanwhile, a lot of drivers out there on a lap, and Dylan Baxter will be next up to the line. But not improving, so we're going to have to go in for another run. Meanwhile, we have Blade. And Blade up to the line. Can he finally get a decent lap time on the board? And he does that. The first driver into the 41s with a 41.9. Meanwhile, Paulus hopefully will finally get a lap time on the board here, as he is chucking around. Reese gone quicker with a 41.8 in the Red Bull. And Paulos gets a lovely run through bus stop, but on the exit, struggling for traction, and goes up to P12. But a very close field here. You can see a couple of tenths will give you a lot of positions here. But Paulos down in P13, as we've seen Mikey on into P19. Wonder who else is out there on lap. Sausage Joe in. Anyone close to completing a lap? Let's see here. I believe Adam is just completed one. I don't really know who's actually on a lap here. Maybe Bran. According to the Delta, he's probably on an in-lap. Crossfire Strikes does look to be pushing here. But Crossfire Strikes dipped a wheel in the gravel and is invalid. Arctis not improving. FG James on an in-lap. Adam out there also on an in-lap. Evier Daniel on an in. And I think everyone else really on an in-lap. So everyone really preparing for their final run here. But anyway, only a couple minutes left of the session. I would love if there was no yellow flag. We could tell how much minutes there was actually left in the session. But I think there's enough time for one more run from everyone else. But Jay Snowy, only driver out there. 3 minutes left of the session. And Snowy will be the only driver out on a lap, but makes a big mistake up a Rouge. And he's already backing out of that lap because that was a big mistake. Would have lost him a lot of time, and he's certainly not going to improve there. Hopefully for his case he has enough fuel to do another lap here. But he's going to let through Epic OJ. And Epic OJ currently P3. Could be within a shout for pole position here. Only 2 tenths off Reese, who leads the field as it stands. And it'll be interesting as 2 minutes left of the session. Everyone going to be piling out of the pit lane for their final run in qualifying. And some of them still in the pit lane got to get a move on to get out of the pit lane to complete their final run. But where can Epic OJ go? As we'll go on board with the McLaren, who, to my knowledge, seems to be, will be certainly the first driver to set their final lap time here in Belgium, as he takes a wider line on entry to maximise his speed down into turn 1 of La Source. And taking third gear as he tries to plant the throttle out of turn 1 in this big climb up a Rouge and Radion. And keeps his line near perfect as down the Camel Straight we go. And into Lacombe. Wants to touch that little bit of green tarmac. That's kind of your indicator that you're on the right line through Lacombe and down the hill. And into the left of No Name. As Epic OJ looking pretty nice on his run through Pouhon as the car bottoms out, bounces through the corner. As Snowy retired and is out of the session. Unfortunately, we won't be able to pick up where he is. I'm pretty sure his car will despawn by the time we get there, as Epic OJ touches a little bit of the gravel, but still is 1.5 tenths to the good. Needs a little bit more time out of this lap if he does want to get pole here. He's not far off Reese. He just needs to nail bus stop here if he wants pole here, as he chucks it in. And it's a lovely run on entry, on exit. Can he get the throttle? It's a beautiful exit. Can OJ do it? OJ does improve, but not by enough. He will stay P3. So disappointing for OJ to not get pole, but it was still a very good run. Meanwhile, we've Dylan Baxter, the only driver yet to set a lap time here in the McLaren. Can he finally get a run on the board, as he's already used his deployment before he've even got to the bus stop chicane and out of the final corner, losing the rear. Can Dylan improve? It's up to P7. Big improvement there for Dylan, as Mulder goes P4. Who else do we have around the final corner? Everyone's kind of everywhere, as we see Cyntium up to P4. Can't really catch a car that's near the line here. We'll move up to Blade if we can. Crossfire Strikes is retired, as Blade now across line. Daniel goes P17. Blade goes quickest with a 41.7. Blade has provisional pole. Can Reese do anything to stop him, or will anyone else get anywhere close here in Spa in this GRL social race? Can Reese do anything to stop the pole? But Bran, out of nowhere, Reese does improve the P2, but Bran gets pole at the death. Bran with a 41.5. Brilliant lap time from the Aston Martin driver. And Bran will be starting from pole in this social race. And there you have it. Bran out-qualifies Reese by 13 thousandths, very close. But what a performance there from Bran. And the Aston Martin driver will be starting on pole ahead of Reese, ahead of Blade, Epic, Cyntium, Rose, Mulder, James, Octus, and Crossfire Strikes. The AMS driver down in P10. But as we load into the session, I did see some people mention rain, but it looks pretty dry as it stands, so we may see rain later in the session. but currently there's no rain at the moment. But as we get ready for 22 laps at the Belgian circuit, which out of all the tracks that are potential two stops on this game, certainly Belgium I think will be a one stop, as there's not many laps, so I don't think there'd be enough laps to really make advantage out of the two stop. Also, I don't think the tire wear's ever been too high at Belgium, although we will see if anyone can pull it off here. But I do believe it'll probably be a medium hard, I'd say. On the previous game it was a medium soft, but a lot of that was due to the tire wear in last game being pretty much non-existent, whereas in this game the tire wear is extremely high on some tracks. Certain tracks I wouldn't even go near the softs. Had a league race yesterday, well not a league race but a social race yesterday at Canada, and the softs died immediately. So there's certain tracks where the softs are just not a workable tire, but we will have the 5 red lights on here in GRL Belgium, as we do have Bran leading the field away down into turn 1 of La Sauce, and it's a brilliant start from the Aston Martin driver as Epic forcing Blade on the inside as a big contact between the Red Bull as we head into turn 1, as there's a Williams of Octus down off into the gravel at turn 1. He's went straight on as everyone else seems to have gotten away relatively cleanly, as Blade now on the rear as Epic OJ already chucking it past Bran as we all charge up Rouge and Radion down the Camel Straight. Bran looking on the rear of the McLaren as they head into Lacombe. Side by side they're going to go. Will they leave each other room left as the Red Bull of Reese leaves the track, almost coming together with Blade as they head down the hill now. And Mulder losing out to Rose as there's been some contact, the Alpine of a Jay Snowy involved, and that's Dylan out here on lap 1. Still a lot of cars swapping around here under that VSC, as we're not sure what's happening here. A couple of illegal overtakes that the game, I assume, is trying to sort out, and the drivers are trying to sort out amongst themselves as well. Who's in what position? Welcome in, Rich. Welcome into the stream. Hope you're doing well. We're here on lap 1 of this GRL social race, and Dylan Baxter already out on lap 1, with Jay Snowy picking up some damage as well. And the VSC is out. Will we see anyone try hards to the end from here under this VSC? Will the VSC stay out long enough for a pit stop? We will see, but Epic OJ with a brilliant start there. And Epic OJ now, as we go on green flag racing, VSC is gone. No one will benefit from that VSC as we head into bus stop, and a bit of contact with the rear of the Alpine as Centium loses it to Sausage Joe. Sausage Joe just gets a better exit than the Ferrari as Crossfire strikes now on the outside of GRL Adam as we head into turn 1. Side by side they go, as we're almost too wide ahead as well, as Centium over revving the engine here, stuck behind FGE James. Contact with Sausage Joe as Sausage Joe almost clips the rear. Up the hill they go as Crossfire strikes. Falls back. Adam though gets the charge, and Sausage Joe and Adam comfortably ahead of Sausage Joe. Brilliant move there from the Mercedes to fend off Crossfire strikes and then get ahead of Sausage Joe. Centium, why does his engine sound like that? Is Centium hacking? I think, unless he's on like full traction or something, this is a strange driving style. Well, he's definitely on full traction, but this is a strange way to drive. Where he's somehow at full throttle at all times. Interesting. Anyway. No one else seems to be using this driving style. Which is strange. Anyway, Sausage Joe now on the inside of FG James. Into turn 1 they go. Sausage Joe goes deep. But can he get a better exit? Does nail the exit. FG James going to fall down to P10 now. And Sausage Joe up the hill. Trying to chase after GRL Adam. But this gives us an opportunity now and a bit of a lull in the race to look at the tyres as Bran retakes the lead ahead of Epic OJ. And so we'll see what tyres everyone's gone for. A lot of hard runners out there. With some medium runners of Bran, Epic OJ, Adam, Sausage Joe, Crossfire Strikes, and Paulus. As Raza picks up the first time penalty of the day. But Reese now all over the rear of Epic OJ. Epic OJ maybe struggling now on these mediums as Bran looks to drop the hammer. Looks to escape off into the distance. Can Bran here start to build the lead with Epic OJ struggling to stay with him. Meanwhile, Centium, I bet, is still over-revving the engine. No idea how he's driving like this. Maybe my game's bugged seeing this glitch or whatever, but I don't know. Anyway, Reese now looking on the outside of Epic OJ, and I think Epic OJ just does not have enough in the tank to keep Reese behind, and Reese wants to stay with Bran. And he probably will have DRS here, and he gets the move on Epic OJ. And Epic OJ's mediums seem to be struggling now, as Reese does have the rear flap open in that Red Bull. And with DRS now. Can he get that move as Evie or Daniel gets ahead of Ben Ford now? There's a gap formed now with P15 as well. And Sausage Joe now on the rear of GRL Adam, as the medium are starting to struggle in this race here on lap 4 already. GRL Adam falling back from Centium, although, to be fair to Adam, what is happening with Centium's engine, I do not know. This is confusing to behold. Maybe he's on full traction and manual gears or something, I don't know. That's strange. I don't know how he's constantly at full throttle. I think this is just a visual glitch because we can have a look at his throttle inputs and they're not like that. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, Reese now on the rear of Bran. As on lap 4, Daniel, the next driver to pick up a time penalty. But the hard runners looking to already outperform the mediums this early on in the race. It does seem like whenever we do get into the league racing season that a Belgium Grand Prix may be a hard medium start, as the mediums with heavy fuel already starting to struggle a little bit here. And Reese already all over the rear of Bran. Can Reese, though, get ahead of Bran and start to build a gap? We will see. Because we're only on lap 5 and already Bran may struggle to keep Reese behind. And also does Bran have the pace to stay with Reese whenever Reese does overtake as we head up the hill over Rouge and Radion and down the Camel Straight with DRS? Reese should get this position very comfortably. Can Epic OJ even look for a position on Bran as well here? Is Bran going to look to defend the inside? Epic OJ going to look on the inside, sends it up at Lacombe. Side by side they go, and Epic OJ just outbreaks Bran. Brilliant move. But they're coming together, has cost them. And Blade off into the grass as Rose now down the outside of Blade. Bit of contact between the Ferrari and the Mercedes. And Blade keeps the position with Bran almost pushing him off. But as I mentioned, Reese I think he has this in the bag now. Because Epic OJ went for the move on Bran and it realistically lost them both loads of time. It was a stupid move to go for because Epic OJ was low on ERS as it was, and now Race is now 1.7 down the road, and Race, I think, has this in the bag. Only a safety car will change that. As Race has much better tyres, it should be a comfortable win from here on out. Meanwhile, Rose on the rear of Blade, but can these other hard runners get ahead of these medium runners? We're already seeing how much time the medium runners are losing to the hard runners this early on in the race. And Blade now on the rear of Bran. Can a move down the Camel Straight be on for the Ferrari driver? We will see. As Maicon gets a 10-second speed in the pit lane penalty. That's certainly not going to help his race. And Bran just about holding on to DRS range from Epic OJ. But is Blade close enough to get a move? It doesn't seem like he's anywhere close enough. Meanwhile, Cyntium still, I mean, I would have to say it's a visual glitch at this point because we can see his telemetry of his throttle and braking and it does look smooth. Whereas on board with him, it's like constant full throttle, which is strange. But FG James now on the rear of Adam. We are seeing these mediums starting to struggle. And Adam now with pressure from the FG driver. Can FG James go for a move? As thank you for the follow, Big Ting Falls in the chat as well. Welcome into the stream. But here on lap 6, the mediums already struggling a lot here. Bran gonna have to use some battery to try and keep up with Epic OJ. As FG James now on the rear of Adam. Is Adam trying to defend from FG James, and FG James sends him deep as Adam breaks very deep, but into the pit lane he goes on lap 7 already. FG Adam in off these medium tyres onto the hards until the end of the race. Well, I'm glad you like it, Big Tig Falls. Welcome into the stream. As Mutter's now on the rear of Rosa. Can he get past the Mercedes, who's already flashing this early in the straight? And as we head down the straight into Lacombe, can the Alpine get ahead of the Mercedes? As side by side they go, and the Alpine breaks later than the Mercedes and gets ahead. Lovely move there from the Alpine. As Cyntium still has this weird glitch. We're going to have to review at GRL what's happening with Cyntium's gearbox. As EVR Daniel leaves the session, couldn't hack it. And Ben Ford now starting to pressurise the medium runners of Paulos and Crossfire Strikes. And can Paulos keep Ben Ford behind? But FG James already out of DRS range from Sausage Joe. We're seeing another train being formed here behind FG James. Does he have the pace to try and catch up to Sausage Joe here? We will see. As Epic OJ into the box. He'll be the next driver to pit here. Epic OJ looking for another undercut on Race and Bran, whom he's battling with. Meanwhile, Blade finally has the opportunity to get ahead of Bran, but he's lost so much time to Race already. Race has a 4.5 second lead. And as we see Blade now go for the overtake on Race, he can see Race taking the next corner as Cyntium on the rear Meanwhile, however you pronounce this name, it gets ahead of Raza Gamer. I don't even know what that assortment of letters is saying. Anyway, we'll say Haas 2. Meanwhile, he's behind Haas 1 of Paulos in P10. He's currently staying with Crossfire Strikes. He's also staying with his V-Carb teammate of FG James. FG James trying to get back onto the rear of this train of Sausage Joe. He's not too far back, only 2/10. Does FG James to get back inside DRS range of that train ahead, as Crossfire Strike seems to be struggling on these medium truck tyres to try and stay with FG James. And we are seeing that tyre wear and the dirty air kick in now, as Crossfire Strike's really struggling to stay with James now. As James, does he have DRS off this train ahead? We will see as he heads into bus stop. Unsteady on the rear was James, brakes a little too deep and will not get the ideal run out of the final corner. Does not have that rear flap open, I don't believe, as he's still trying to stay with Sausage Joe, but Crossfire Strikes pulls the undercut on his AMS teammate of Sausage Joe. Yeah, here at GRL, always been known for clean racing. And for those of you new to GRL, GRL races on Mondays here at 8 PM UK time. And they have between 4 and 6 tiers, I would say. Unsure at this point, as sign-ups not yet completed. So, soon to be announced how many tiers GRL will be running on Mondays at 8 PM UK time. But Mutters now on the rear of Bran, and as you're right, Big Ting Foz, we do have the mediums holding the hard runners up a lot in this race, as Blade has already dropped Bran here. But Blade now 5.3 behind Reese. Reese had got a major advantage from getting ahead of the medium runners so quickly on in this race. Meanwhile, FGGM still trying to stay with Sausage Joe, and now that he has the ERS save, does he have the battery to get inside DRS range of the medium runner? This could be crucial for FG James's race. Meanwhile, Mutter on the rear of Bran, as Bran gonna come in, and it's a very scary pit entry. You kind of have to go offline there, and some drivers who are looking for the switchback can certainly get caught out, as we almost seen Mutter get caught out there. As Raza losing the rear, breaking into turn 1 on the rear now of Ben Ford. As Sausage Joe now on the mediums, going quite long. And I think Sausage Joe doing spectacularly on in this race. I think whenever he does put on the hards, he will have the strongest hards out of the field. But he is trying to stick with these hard medium runners for sure. I don't know if anyone will touch the sauce. We've seen the mediums really struggle in this race. As Gerald Adams left the session, I'm going to try and get him back in again here. Hopefully he appears online for me. Apparently not. As we'll try and get Adam in as soon as possible, who is having a decent race, but may lose out now due to that disconnect. As I'm just going to call this guy Ediz, as he sees a big snap of the rear from FG James. Dips a wheel in the grass, as we also see Mycons around. As Paulus picks up a time penalty, battling with Jay Snowy. As side by side they go into the chicane, and Snowy, who boxed very early onto the hard tyres due to his damage on lap 1. And for those of you who want to know how good the graphics are of the game, just look at that right tyre. Or just even look at the tyres here of Snowy's car. Look at the definition on those 8-lap-old hard tyres. Look at the graphics here. This is spectacular. You can see how detailed the tyres are. That is spectacular to watch. The graphics have taken a major step up on this game, and it's lovely to see. Meanwhile, Adam's left the session again. We'll try and get him back in again. I think maybe he was online that time. Mycon's retired from the session. There's Adam again. But Sausage Joe now on the rear of Crossfire Strikes. Gets ahead now. Sausage Joe went longer on the medium tires. He's got the freshest hards out of everyone doing the hard medium. But a lot of drivers out there doing... out of the drivers who did the medium hard. Excuse me. Meanwhile, we've got Raza Gamer, the first driver doing the hard medium. The first driver to pit onto the mediums along with GRL Adam. Don't know if he necessarily wanted to do that, but his AI has pit him. Thank you for the follow in the chat, Luke Ryan, as well. Welcome into the stream. Hope you're doing well. As Adam, unfortunately, unable to get back into his car, it seems. As Mulder now in the rear of Rose, and Mulder having a decent race. Hasn't picked up any time penalties as Cyntium and Rose have. It'll be intriguing to see how this shapes up as we progress. As FG James now into the box. And Cyntium still puzzled by why his engine seems to be over-revving. It must be some sort of visual glitch on my end. Because his actual throttle inputs and his brake inputs seem relatively smooth. So very quite strange. Anyway, Mulder gets ahead of Rose into Lacombe. An easy move it is with DRS as Rose looks to look back down the hill. Only dips a wheel in the grass. And Rose, using too much of that outside curb, pushed him into the gravel. But thankfully for the Mercedes, he does not lose too much time. But here on lap 12, a lot of the hard runners still yet to box onto the mediums. And will we see the medium runners who start on the mediums of Sausage Joe, Epic OJ Bran, and Crossfire Strikes? Where will they come into play? As the drivers who start on the hards start to box now. I believe lap 13, 14 will probably be the lap, or maybe even lap 12 we'll start to see everyone box on to the mediums. As Edis gets ahead of Cyntium, although Cyntium coming in along with Ben Ford as well. So, still the top 6 yet to box off the hards. But as it stands, Reese looking like he has a comfortable win in the bag here. Blade not really making any inroads on Reese. But Blade looks like he has got P2 in the bag. As Rose gets ahead of Mulder into Lacombe. And these two have been swapping positions for the last number of laps. But again, as we see the sun reflect off the tyres, look how beautiful it looks. The textures on the tyre. That looks incredible. I hope whatever you're watching this on can pick up how amazing these graphics are. Pretty sure I try and stream in the highest quality possible. If it looks bad, I apologize. But oh well, what can you do? But the tyre graphics have definitely taken a step up. And you can see the difference between Brand's tyres. Here, only 3 laps old. You see the surface looks relatively smooth. And as we move up to Rose, look how the bumps on that tyre are starting to form. As Mulder following on the rear of Rose. And Eric's having a really decent race so far as well. Another one of the drivers to watch out for the podium as Blade comes in for the mediums. And Eddick's going for the undercut on Rosé and Mulder. And we'll see where they shape up with Epic getting ahead of Uctus as he enters the box for the mediums now. Where will Epic and Bran shape up? Bran has got back inside DRS range from Epic OJ. Epic OJ did go for the undercut, which was successful, but now Bran with DRS. Can Bran get ahead of Epic OJ? 2 laps fresher hards here. As there's a yellow flag out for, I'm not sure it's for, but Blade now on these mediums as Mulder gets back ahead of Rosé again. But Blade now on the rear of Crossfire Strikes, who's dropped back from Sausage Joe. But Blade just has to dispatch of Crossfire Strikes, Sausage Joe, Bran and OJ, who are all on older hards, for Blade to get back up into the P2 position that he had been holding. Meanwhile, Rosé and Mulder continue on here on these old hards. I wonder, is anyone going to try the softs? I think Reese is pretty comfortable. Probably could box now and get on to the medium tyres. But I wonder, is anyone going to try the softs? I feel like it's a risk on this game because the softs don't seem to be the strongest tyre on this game. Softs probably useful in races where you're doing a 2-stop. But I don't think there's many drivers doing a 2-stop here at Belgium. And Reese now into the box for the mediums. But where does everyone shape up after these pit stops? Does Epic OJ take the lead now with the big undercut he pulled? And I think he does. But Reese now exiting just behind Bran. And he will be in DRS range as Sausage Joe now on the rear of the Red Bull of Reese. But Reese did have a big lead. He's got to use the mediums though while he has them. He's got to use that fresh rubber. And try and make some moves here as he... Oh my god, round the outside. I don't believe it. No way. Side by side they're going. So much grip he could find on the outside. A mega move that would have been from Reese if he could have pulled it off. But just unable to. But can Reese find a way past Bran? As Bran losing the rear. Trying to hold on to DRS range of Epic OJ. As Edens, who was doing well in this race, unfortunately for him, picks up a time penalty. Meanwhile, Ben Ford now on the rear of Raza. And Raza, who has boxed 2 laps earlier, will have older mediums. And it'll be tougher to defend. Meanwhile, Reese looking on the rear of Bran, side by side, almost in to the bus stop. And Bran almost chopping off Reese's front wing, but Reese now round the outside, just doesn't have a lot of ERS to play around with as he dives it on the inside. Big dive from Reese. As he almost shears off the Aston Martin's front wing. And now surely Bran going to get comfortably back ahead with the DRS and all the battery is saved. Sausage Joe may even get ahead of Reese now. And Reese really not looking after his battery at all here. And losing 2 positions just like that. Oh, contact with Sausage Joe. Side by side they go. Reese trying to use the pace that he has on those tyres to get back ahead of Sausage Joe. Sausage Joe losing the rear. And all of this invites Blade into play. Reese really not being smart about his charge through the pack here. Meanwhile, Ben Ford has got it. Crossfire strikes onto the grass. We just caught the end of that incident, but Ben Ford got ahead of Crossfire Strikes, who was all out of shape, and he also lost out to the Haas of Edids. But unsure what happened there in that little scuffle. Now as we follow Reese, I wonder is he going to play it a bit smarter now and protect a bit of his battery? Because if he doesn't, he may lose out. And Blade has joined this battle. Blade only got a lap older mediums than Reese, but Reese had a much bigger gap over Blade than it looks now. As Edids gets ahead of Ben Ford. Ben Ford looking for the switchback as crossfire strikes coming in. Maybe damage for the AMS drivers. Race going to get ahead side by side. They go through La Source. And Bran going to have to concede the position to Race now. But as they head, Upper Rouge and Radion has this time as Race played it smarter. And made sure he had enough battery. He's got DRS now off Epic OJ as Adam retires in the pit lane. Race going to pick the outside of Epic OJ as Bran tries to look on the outside of Epic OJ as well. And Race now, mega move. And through Lacombe, you see how much grip those mediums have. Race now, already 7/10s clear. As FG James picks up a time, but Bran on the inside. Oh, it's hit around Sausage Joe. And Sausage Joe, the unfortunate victim in that incident there. And Epic OJ and Bran coming together, fighting over position. They're being really silly about this, which just has let Reese escape up the road again. That's twice in the race they've done that. Really silly battling, which easily allows Reese to escape, but Bran contact with Epic OJ and actually caught Sausage Joe. Sausage Joe's escaped without damage, thankfully for his case. Meanwhile, Blade on the rear of Bran. And Blade, you got to remember, on these fresher mediums than these hard runners. Blade, though, in a similar predicament to what he was earlier in the race, where Reese has got the opportunity to escape down the road. Meanwhile, Blade may have to play it smarter as Bran goes to defend as FG James retired in the pit lane. And Blade now following the rear of Bran and Epic OJ. And he's surely got to dump the battery down the Camel Straight here to try and see if he can get past Bran and OJ. As, oh my lord, they're 3 wide down the Camel Straight. Blade's gone onto the grass to try and get down the inside of the Aston Martin side by side. They go into Lacombe. And can Blade get the switchback down the hill? Lovely moves. We're 3 wide down the Camel Straight. Epic OJ trying to defend as Sausage Joe trying to get past the McLaren here, who has been defending for his life. But Epic OJ got the older hards here. Going to be a struggle for the McLaren to keep everyone at bay. But all this battling yet again will help Reese even more head down the road. And Reese, I'm sure, will be loving life being almost 5 seconds up the road now. Meanwhile, his only real competitor, Blade, still stuck behind Bran here. But this could be the lap for Bran to get ahead of the lap for Blade to get ahead of Bran. And try and head down the road. But you've seen how powerful the hard medium has been. But can the likes of Cyntium and Ben Ford and Edids, Mulder, Rossi, who all went very long, can they use it as we head later on in the race? As these hard runners look to battle, it could potentially cost them a Sausage Joe now looking for a better exit than Epic OJ as they head down into turn 1. And Sausage Joe gets ahead of the McLaren. And the McLaren on those 3-lap older hards just doesn't seem to have the tyre under that McLaren to battle with the Williams. Meanwhile, Blade now finally going to get the opportunity to get ahead of Bran. But now Blade is 6 seconds down the road of Reese. Maybe he could have made that move earlier. But hopefully now for Blade, he has enough pace in the tank now to escape these hard runners. You're already seeing through every corner the tents tick away and it's already at 7/10. That's how powerful these mediums are later on in the race, with the fuel coming off the cars here. And Blade almost has already pulled a gap of DRS to Bran here. And I think everyone should keep an eye on this. It does seem like the hard medium is certainly the way to go in this race, as there's still 4 laps to go in this race. And we now see Ben Ford on these mediums starting to catch the rear of Epic OJ. May have DRS very shortly. As we now head on to lap 20. It'll be the 3rd final lap of the race. And can these medium runners of Ben Ford, all the way down to Octus, make the mediums work? Centium still over revving the engine. Unsure what's happening there, but hey ho. Sausage Joe now on the rear of Bran. Bran's lost DRS to Blade as Jay Snowy retires in the pit lane. It looks like it will be a 1-2 of Reese and Blade quite comfortably in this one. But who can be on the podium is Ben Ford now, starting to close up to the rear of Epic OJ. And despite those mediums being on 7 laps already, but he does touch the gravel a little bit with a tyre. I was about to say that they did look like they were performing well, but maybe now with the dirty air. And here on lap 7, have they hit the cliff as Paulos around at the corner of No Name, and Paulos just retires on track. Unhappy with his spin. Excuse me. As Ben Forward now sees the McLaren of Epic OJ leave the track. OJ picking up a time penalty as well. And Ben Forward now may find a way past the McLaren on these fresher mediums. Ben Ford on the rear of the McLaren, as the McLaren now may not have DRS, which should open the door for this Aston Martin to comfortably get ahead, as we're now on the penultimate lap of the race. Race with a dominant performance here in this GRL social race. Could Race be one of the main contenders here for the GRL Championship when we finally start the main season? But Ben Ford now gonna look on the inside of the McLaren of Epic OJ and surely get straight through. And the dirty air for OJ, just struggling so much to get that car rotated. These hards are really struggling. Let's open the door for Centium. And OJ may start to lose even more positions here. The strategy has not really worked for him. And he's already out of DRS range from Ben Ford. As Mulder's left the session. I don't have Mulder added, so unfortunately for Mulder, was looking at a decent result, so I wonder, will it let me add Mulder? No, it won't. Well, that's a bit annoying. Anyway, Ben Ford now as we head on to the final lap. What can the Aston Martin do on these fresher mediums? He sees his teammate in Bran just ahead of him. Bran was the pole sitter, but may finish off the podium, as it seemed Reese and Blade had the better strategies doing the hard medium here. The tyre wear just seemed to work a whole lot better as we now head up Rouge and Radion for the final time in this one. And does Bran just about have DRS range from Sausage Joe. I think he does, but does he have enough to defend from Ben Ford? I don't think he has it. Ben Ford just has too much pace in that Aston Martin as they send it side by side into Lacombe. The two Aston Martin drivers, as we get horrible camera angles as they battle down the hill. Side by side they go. Both these lovely green cars still battling down the hill side by side. Ferocious battling, and Bran may have to concede. Started the race from pole, but may only finish as high as P5 for Bran. And Ben Ford may have the bragging rights here. With a fantastic move there. Great battling with his teammate of Bran, and Bran, I'm sure, will learn from this. Again, I'm sure Bran realizes I should probably do a hard medium in future, because that seems to be what the game is indicating to us following this one. Doesn't seem like that medium hard really worked successfully. The only driver who was able to make it work was Sausage Joe, who did very well. But Reese is your dominant victory here in GRL Belgium, as Blade will finish P2 as Cyntium side by side with Edits as Rose gets ahead of both of them for a fantastic finish for Rose up to P7, but it will be Blade P2 ahead of Sausage Joe on the podium. Sausage Joe was able to make that medium hard work. Meanwhile, Bran and Epic OJ did struggle, falling down to P5 and 6. And Ben Ford into P4, making a fantastic move on his teammate on the final lap there. Meanwhile, it's Epic OJ P6, Octus P7, followed by Mulder, Rose. But a fantastic race to watch there, and Reese with a dominant victory here in GRL. And is that a sign of things to come for Reese? Will we see Reese be one of the championship contenders here in GRL? As we'll see, the driver of the day has been Ben Ford, and a deserving drive for Ben Ford, as Reese picks up the win and the fastest lap, and Sausage Joe with the most overtakes, getting onto the podium with that P3. Meanwhile, Octus was your cleanest driver of the day. And as we look at the results, Reese gets the win along with the fastest lap here. Meanwhile, Blade finishes on the podium behind him, ahead of Sausage Joe. But there you have it. That has been the GRL race here in Belgium. One of the pre-season races before GRL starts up and running for the season. But I've been WHFRO. Thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed, please drop a follow, and we will find someone to raid on our way out. As we will raid AGM Racing. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed, please drop a follow, and we will see you again, as GRL, I'm sure, will return next Monday at 8 PM UK time. But thank you all for watching, and goodbye.